All right, so last week we talked about when kind of setting the vision for yourself, for where you want to be, or setting the vision for your company, on kind of making that road and having that path and setting the kind of the flag in the sand at some point and deciding where you want to go. And so what I want to talk about today is why it's important to put this flag somewhere into focus. Because remember, there was, we had the little space where you're at and lots of little different roads going off in a lot of different directions. But what ends up happening is, when you've got this road of life that you're trying to figure out, you place your flag in the sand. That's a really big flag. When you place that flag in the sand, then that gives you some direction of which to focus on. Because what ends up happening is this road is definitely not a straight road without any adversity, without any distractions, without any things. And more often than not, you don't even know if it's the right road. But what ends up, if you're standing here, and then and if this is this road, what ends up happening is it's not just a clear path, it's not clear sailing, that you're always going to come up against some adversity. And so what ends up happening is you've got little mountains that you're going to come up against. And why it's important to know why and where you want to go is because when you're walking on this path, if you don't know this is where you want to go, if you're just wandering aimlessly, what are you going to do? You're immediately going to get to this little bit of adversity and you're going to exit stage right. It kind of comes back to the entrepreneur perseverance curve we talked about a long time ago with that inflection point, is if there's a little bit of adversity and you don't really have a core purpose and a core vision of what you want to be and where you want to go, then it's going to just kind of go off. And so what ends up happening is over time, you're going to overcome this little challenge, then you're going to have a little bit bigger challenge that you're going to have to overcome, and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so why it's important, once again, is this is where, is it adversity versus preparation? From the standpoint of there's always going to be challenges that we're going to have to overcome. There's always going to be new things that we're going to learn, and we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable in these situations. The difference being is, when you're going up these little mountains and going over the top to try to figure out what's on the other side, is this something that's a stress, struggle, making life miserable, or is it something that's preparing you for a bigger battle later or a bigger journey later? So it's, if you're training for the Boston Marathon, I think at mile 22 or something, they have the cardiac hill, that it's a huge hill you have to climb. Which means during your training, if you're training for the Boston Marathon, you need to be doing some hill training. If you're doing a flat path, a course that's all flat, you don't need to do that hill training. So then in that situation, now you've got this little hill that you can look at as, instead of being a stressing situation, as a learning situation that's training you to take on this one. And when you take this one on, then that's training you to take this. And so this comes into play a lot of times when, at goBRANDgo, when we're having you guys do a lot of the things that would be easier for management to do or for the owners to do. But we want to have you guys learn those challenges and learn the things that are going to make you better employees down the road. This is why it's so important to have the why in mind, because otherwise it just looks like you're getting extra stuff and you're getting extra challenges. But really what it is preparation. It's those lessons that can learn. And so, combining a couple different elements from the last couple weeks. If you remember the growth curve when we talked about that, do you guys remember the beginner, novice, expert, master? It's kind of the same thing. You've got, in these stages, you've got the kind of the beginner mountains that you have to overcome. Then you've got the novice, and then you've got some expert, and it kind of keeps going. And so what you're going to see the pattern in here then is still that same kind of similar kind of up and down component from that recharge piece to the stress to the growth and all those things. And also it kind of pulls in another element we talked about a while ago, that growth is traditionally stair-step, and this kind of explains why. And so when we're growing the business, you've got a little bit of time that you're spent overcoming some adversity, and then you figure it out, and then you plateau to kind of learn the lessons of what happened here. Apply those, get those to where you can put them on autopilot, and then now you've got those beginner skills down pat, and you can start preparing for this next journey that's going to be an uphill battle to climb up that mountain, to climb up that hill. You're going to, at times, be over your head. At times, you're going to have to overcome some adversity that you're not used to coming up with. But then once again, you can then plateau, learn and relearn, and make sure you got those on autopilot and keep going this way. So this is where those kind of all come into play, and why it's so important to make sure you've got this flag planted and you've got your vision really situated, because if you don't have this, then you can't apply these lessons in a way that are going to build. If you don't apply those lessons, all you're really doing is kind of operating up in this area for reasons that you don't know. And that's why the why is so important. You know, one of my favorite sayings is that a strong enough why can overcome any what. And when you think about that, you know, when you think about someone who's trying to overcome something that's really challenging, someone that's trying to overcome a terminal disease, or trying to raise money for someone, a family member, a friend that's going through something big, that's a really strong why. And they're going to sacrifice and do the things that they need to do and climb whatever hills and whatever mountains that they need to do in order to make that happen. You know, the same thing when it comes to business. If you've got a really strong mission and strong vision that you can believe in and that you can get inspired about, you're much more capable of overcoming these adversities and applying the lessons learned in preparation in a way that's going to continue to grow you as a person and your business as an organization. And so this kind of puts the bow on all of these, is if you don't have this why really strongly, you don't look at it as preparation, you just see it as adversity, and that's when you can get stressed and burned out and really start to falter. So that's kind of puts a bow on this whole kind of planting the flag in the sand type of vision.